Good evening. Welcome to this month's Gin Me live tasting. How you doing there, Tom?
I'm very good, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Nottingham Forest are beating Fulham 2-0, so I'm very happy this evening so far. But the game's not over, so anything can change.
I feel like it's going to be a football-themed Gin Me tasting because just before we came on, I was talking to Matt from Jim Tonic. Their distillery over in Stratford is right near the West Ham ground, and they've just had a fans leave the venue. Fortunately for us, because he's there, and so it's all about football, basically.
Basically, yeah, that's it. That's it, pretty much. Game. Cool. But yeah, I'm good. Excellent. How are you?
Good stuff. Right. Well, let's introduce Matt. Let's just not just talk about him and bring him in. Hey, Matt.
Hey, guys. How are we doing?
We are good. Thanks for having you on board. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
No, thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
You've got a fantastic backdrop there. The distillery looks incredible there over in Stratford. How long has that distillery been going?
So it's relatively new. We moved here about 18 months ago. So we've been an established brand for longer than that. We actually started out as a mobile events business and then graduated into a few different sites in London that were meanwhile use and street food markets and different venues. And we had very small bars where we actually had small micro distilleries that sat behind our bars. And we've always been looking for sort of a dedicated brand house and headquarters with actual production space that we could sort of section off, which is this. So yeah, I'm in our distillery here, and you've got our production still just behind us. And in front of me, we've got our bar and restaurant, and we've got plentiful of outdoor space over here in East London. And as you said, super close to the old Olympic Park area where the West Ham Stadium is, and they're playing Spurs tonight. So big rivalry, big match.
Wow. Yeah. They're actually playing at just by you guys at West Ham, are they?
Yeah. So 8:15 kickoff, and the place was heaving sort of 30 minutes ago, and everyone left just to go and catch the match.
Fair enough.
Well, we'll keep everyone updated with the score as we continue, and for the Nottingham game as well. Obviously, it's a football themed Jimmy for some reason. Cool. So take us back to the events business. When did the Jim and Tonic events business first start, and how did that look initially, and how did it evolve?
Yeah. So our brand is probably quite different to a lot of the other distilleries out there. So you might picture sort of big farms with fields of botanicals and big spaces. We're a bit more urban in our setup, and our story to get into where we are is a little bit different. So with a name like Jim and Tonic, you might have guessed it, our founder's name is Jim. So that is my business partner. And the brand came about when he was skiing in Norway back in 2016 with some friends. And that was when the gin movement was really gathering a bit of pace. He'd always loved a G&T. Even, when you go to like a working men's pub or somewhere like that, and you'd get Gordon's, one little cube of ice and a sad bit of lemon. So he always liked gin. But when he went over there, he experienced for the first time the sort of Spanish copper balloon glasses filled to the brim with ice, like really good quality gins that were entering the market, like William Chase and Martin Miller's, paired with good tonics and interesting garnishes and things like that. And he was just sort of blown away. Obviously drank a few on that trip, and either slurred the words or his mate started calling him because he'd had so many. So called him Jim and Tonic. He bought the domain name there and then, and decided he wanted to bring sort of experience back to the UK. So we began as a mobile events bar. He bought a Peugeot J9 1981 plate. So we turned this sort of vintage van into a bar, like black and white branding, prohibition style, fitted it out, and then started going to like little events across the country. So street food markets and little like golf events and things of that nature. And we would serve other people's gin, pair them with different interesting tonics. So not all from one brand, like, Fever Tree or Franklin's, you might be familiar with, but it'd be things like Dr. Polidari Cucumber Tonic, or, Goldberg Yuzu Tonic from Japan. And there would be like weird and wonderful garnishes. So things like marshmallows would go in there, and apple and juniper and all sorts of different stuff. And one of the things that he didn't like was queuing up at cocktail bars. So the idea was to be able to have quick service and giving like customers something they wanted in a cocktail style. So it was those combinations done in a speedful way, in a fun sort of vibe, which is where the brand started from. And then it sort of built and grew from there.
Nice. That's quite an origin story to get to a distillery in Stratford. Like very sort of humble origins, like cruising around in an old van. I love it.
Yeah.
You're hearing what you're saying about, Gordon's with a cube of ice and a sad bit of lemon. I mean, I remember Tom and I both remember when we first started bartending 20 plus years ago, that was kind of what you'd get in your average bar. And so if you liked gin and tonics back then, you really liked gin and tonics because they were, on the whole, pretty poorly presented drinks, and rarely ever cold enough. Usually the tonic water was rubbish, and you only had one, maybe two gins to choose from.
Well, even the citrus, brown edged lemon slice. No actual citrus juice in there at all, or any kind of acidity. It's been sat there in a cling film for about a week. Yeah, it's come a long way.
Yeah, I was just spending the weekend back home in Wales. We had a surprise party for my auntie who turned 60, and it was served exactly that in that style. So it was one of these event spaces that you can hire out above like a conservative club, and that was exactly what you got. So some parts it's still like that.
Well, I don't know your 60-year-old auntie, but I mean, she probably would have been sort of prime gin and tonic drinker back around the turn of the millennium. She would have been in that age category because it was mostly women of a certain age who were drinking it back then. And it seems like the whole thing's become so much more egalitarian now in terms of who drinks it and the occasions in which it's consumed. And what a turnaround for like sort of 2 decades, and really most of it done in the last 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we got to the events business has taken off really, really well. How do we get from that to a gin brand? You've got a distillery now, but was there a time when you were not making it, someone else was making it for you, or how did that work?
Yeah, so a real sort of watershed moment for the brand is we'd had our van in a place called Mercato Metropolitano in Elephant and Castle in London. So it was a sort of pop-up street food market, but a really big space. Sort of fits like 2,000 plus people and a real central part of town that was underdeveloped. And you had really cool food offerings there. You'd have about 40 different street food traders. And that was our foot in the door, really. We had the opportunity to build our first sort of bricks and mortar bar there. So we built a gin bar, bought a still, which we still produce our products in today. So it's 100 litre still, which we call Cleller. So the name of the still is named after sort of our 3 business partners, better halves. So Claire, Ellie, and Lauren. The first 2 letters, a bit like how ABBA was named. And funnily enough, we've now ended up really close to ABBA Voyage Arena as well. So we sort of feel like we've come full circle. And we wrote a sort of a business plan for it. And we thought, we might have a nice little business here. And within the first day of opening, we sort of built the bar ourselves out of offshoots of timber and reclaimed materials because we're a sustainable brand. We smashed the figures out the park and realized that there was a real appetite and demand for this stuff, and sort of threw the business plan out the window and was like, we've got something here that's really cool. So we had a very small space. We had this still that sat behind the bar in a semi-open environment. And then we started, producing on site, serving on site. And one of the benefits of that is that we got loads of consumer feedback in real time. So we were able to taste test our products on thousands of different customers and really understand what they wanted, both from a product perspective, but also from a serve perspective. So we've always been so considerate of the end drink that the customer has. We'd seen some trends from other gin producers of what we stocked and what was a good seller, and it just made a lot of sense for us to start producing our own products from there. So the first one we made was sort of inspired by the community market that we were based in. So it's Italian-run independent food market. So we made one that was inspired by the flavors of the Mediterranean and from Italy. So we've got fresh rosemary, thyme, and basil goes into the distillate. Some of those botanicals we grew there on site in our hydroponic walls and in some of the planters in our brewery garden and things like that. So yeah, that was where it begun, and then we started to roll that out into other venues.
What year was that?
That was 2018. Yeah. Okay.
Nice. And then so more venues followed, but so tell me about exactly how the distillery evolved, because you've only got one distillery now at Stratford, or you got multiple distilleries?
So this is our main distillery site. So this is where most of the production takes place. But all the other like more hospitality bar venue sides to our business, we still have small micro stills at those locations. So at Elephant and Castle, we're still there, and we have a small still behind there. We grew with Mercato as they opened a location in Mayfair. So they've got a grade 1 listed building there, which they lease, which is actually an old church, which Roosevelt and his wife used to sort of frequent. Used to be an event space, and it's been turned into another street food market there. So our bar actually sits on the altar, and we've got a still that's been designed to look a bit like an organ. So it's themed, and our bar is made out of broken glass tiles that have been melted down with a light up bar behind. So it's a pretty cool, like Instagrammable place to go and check out. And then what we tend to do at these different sites is make sort of smaller limited edition runs for those specific venues. So in Mayfair, for instance, you've got close proximity to sort of Selfridges and some of the high-end department stores. So we actually make sort of a fragrance inspired gin range there. So we call it Gare, which is one of the fragrance family scents, and it's got a lot of like lavender and like bergamot and the sort of flavors that you find within in that perfume scent. And then there's another small still in Dalston. So we've got a site there which is run by our brewery partners, German Craft Beer. And yeah, we've got still there. We're currently working with a company across the road who are a cinema. So we're trying to develop a popcorn flavored gin for them. So we sort of use those little stills for development and experimental stuff, which is something that we're sort of always proud of the fact that we're happy to do as a small agile business. Try different things and see what people like and what works.
That's very cool. We should maybe look at a gin run, an exclusive with a specific set of botanicals that we can work on. That'd be quite interesting to do if you've got the capacity for a really small run. That would be quite cool and something we've not done before. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got tiny product development stills here in the distillery for that type of thing. But actually, how we build our recipes now is we do individual distillates of botanicals. So we'll have a base of all of these different flavor distillates. So we've done a few projects with other clients where they want their own white label product, for instance, at a bar. And then we can actually build up the recipe by adding more or less of different botanicals to see what works before we do the actual run. So it's a sort of a bit of a insurance policy to make sure you don't throw a load of things in the still and it comes out either great or rubbish type of thing. Yeah, makes sense. Out of interest then, when you do that, because there are a few distilleries that make gin that way as standard, Jim Mare springs to mind, and there's a few others, small producers, but they're one of the bigger ones I think that do it that way. When if you do develop a recipe in that way, when you combine everything together in what would seem to be the same proportions, do you find any differences in the distillate as a result of the botanicals acting together within the still? Yes, I mean, so it will give you a good indication of what the flavor profile
will end up as. But you never know quite how it's going to taste until you actually put it all in and redistill it, fully from the botanicals in terms of the way that they will marry together with one another. But also every still is different. So depending on the size of the still, the level of copper contact, the speed of the distillation, whether you're doing the botanicals are going directly into the still or whether you're doing sort of vapor infusions. There's lots of different ways that you can adapt the sort of the outcome flavor. So actually, we do have a particular still which is wired almost not how you would typically connect a still together. And actually, we've tried to take one of our gin recipes and put it into a larger still to be able to increase our capacity. But actually, it doesn't matter what still we put it in, we can't replicate the flavor. So it always needs to be produced in that particular distillery.
Really stubborn kind of gin, just set in its ways.
So just one quick. So all in all, then, amongst all of these different sort of white label products and the different variants that you've obviously got on the website as well, including the one that we're sort of featuring this evening, how many different products, how many different gin products are you making? Would you say roughly? Because it must be a lot.
Yeah. So we've got 4 gins in our core range. So we've got a London Dry style, which is not stereotypically like a London Dry. We try to utilize botanicals that we can source from in and around the M25. So you've got things like rose petals and apple, linden blossom, which grows all around London, which gives it a different flavor profile, but it's still made in a London Dry style way. So we call it a London Dry. We've got our Mediterranean gin, which I spoke about a little bit earlier, which gives you the sort of the herbal, botanical, and citrusy notes. We've got a grapefruit hop gin, which was, again, a part of a collaboration with our brewery partners. We use the same hops in our distillation processes they use for their brewing, and we know that hops and grapefruit works well, so we put a load of citrus in there to make it a really like citrusy and interesting gin. And then, so that's our 4 main ones. And then we do more seasonal releases, limited edition type runs as well. So that's where the gin that we're going to be tasting later comes into play. And one of the reasons that we've developed that one is because we want to have a full range of different flavors. And this was sort of a bit of a gap in our product range and something that we wanted to develop to sort of fill that part of our menus.
Yeah.
That
leads us perfect. Go on, you got something to say, Tom?
One last question. Sorry, Matt. So the one that we're featuring tonight, the jasmine, pepper, and mango. Which release is that? How many releases have you done so far? I know that was there a rhubarb one previously. Is that correct? Or
sorry, so rhubarb's part of our core range. It's probably the best-selling one that we have. So it's fresh cut rhubarb and honey sourced locally from a small apiary in Kennington Park, which is close to our Elephant and Castle distillery. So that's our fruity sweet one, and it's great for mixing. So best-selling G&T that we have, we mix it with elderflower tonic. Really great for spritzes, fizzes, sours, things like that as well.
Is that one the honey actually added in after distillation, so it's used to sweeten it?
Both. So the honey goes into the still, not for a sweetness element, but each honey will have its own unique flavor. So that gives you
floral, isn't it?
Yeah, it gives you like more of like a textured mouthfeel, smoothness, and some floral notes. And then we add it post distillation as well, and that is for the sweetness. So no artificial sugars are added post distillation.
But it's not sort of gin liqueur level of sweet. It's just sweeter than a standard kind of gin.
Yeah, it's 40% ABV. So it's one that we have developed mostly for mixing in gin and tonics and cocktails. But it's not liqueur level, which I guess would be typically more like 20% level of alcohol. In fact, all of our products that we do make, we tend to try and keep sugar level low comparative to other products in the market. So we make a coffee liqueur, which is the same. We make a triple sec, which is the same, which is actually using waste products from our gin distillation process and from our bar waste as well. So we actually take citrus from our bar, and then we take the heads and tails from our gin production and redistill that to make what we call our zero waste triple sec.
Oh yeah, nice. It's when Tom said to me that we were going to do the Szechuan pepper, jasmine and mango, because I'd not had it before or even heard of it because it's a limited edition. I was like, whoa, we're not doing a liqueur product. This is Jim Me. We kind of tried to stick with not necessarily like pure juniper classic gins, but nevertheless, we're not sort of going down the liqueur route because it's very much a different product. It's a liqueur, that oftentimes there's very little resemblance of a gin. And Tom said, no, it's not. It's not a liqueur. And even then, I had my doubts, but it was only when I got to taste it, and I was like, wow, this is actually a fantastic gin. And hopefully you can elaborate a little bit on its story a little bit more in a minute, but. I was like, this is actually how you should do gins with probably, less traditional or more unusual botanicals, wherein it is still a gin. There's still juniper there. It's still got all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, they're supporting flavors that complement it and yet also give it an edge, make it, give it something, a point of difference that is interesting. And I gave it to my wife and she absolutely loves it. And we've used it in classic gin cocktails and it performs really well. So sort of congratulating on it before we even got to taste it, but I think it's a really great product.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So yeah, as you say, I mean, it is a traditionally made product. So there's a high dose of juniper in there. It's actually made in a London dry style, but we wouldn't call it a London dry because of the flavor profile that is within it. And I guess its development came from a couple of different places. So one, as I was sort of saying, we probably have a gap in our product portfolio in terms of like spicier gins. And we've actually seen market trends move towards spicier drinks and spicier food. So particularly, we look at tequilas and mezcals.
Yeah.
Picante margaritas have become more and more popular. We sort of see these trends through our bar and away from the more sort of citrusy and floral flavor profiles that have become like so popular in the gin category. And then the other thing that has inspired it really is that we really like to invest time into our people within the business and the experimental aspect of what we do. So this product was actually developed by one of our junior distillers that have been working quite closely with our head distiller for a couple of years, been on his sort of bespoke training course. So this was the first one that he produced from scratch. So he started to sort of think about like an Asian style gin and started to experiment with jasmine, with green tea and Szechuan pepper. And that's where it was born from. And then we quickly realized that actually, we had the Lunar New Year coming up in a few months' time. And so we wanted to maybe release something around the Chinese New Year. So that's why on the bottle itself, you'll see some markings that are quite like related to that culture. And it's the year of the dragon as well. So the actual Jim Tonic Perfect Serve that we make, we actually call Dragon, and this has become more affectionately known as the Dragon. So that's what really, kick-started the thought process behind it.
You couldn't get hold of any dragon scales or anything, no? You want to keep it vegan? Keep it vegan, right?
I was just reading through the list of botanicals that goes in it, and I think it's the only thing that's missing, actually. So some stuff that I wasn't even aware of that we had on site to distill with. So,
so can you give us an idea of how many different botanicals are in there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Monkey 47 or anything with 47 different botanicals, but just the types of botanicals that are in there. You've got lotus blossom, cornflower, marigold flower, blue marrow flower,
Wow.
green tea, jasmine blossoms. So there's some stuff that you wouldn't normally find in a gin, really. So yeah, I guess that's the benefit of the flavor library that we've created and been able to develop from there.
Sorry to interrupt you. This would have been made in that way, i.e., blending together the composite flavors, distillates, and then formulating a recipe, and then redistilling then starting again and everything in one still.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where we would play about with things and using different styles as way of distillation. So some vapor infusion, some vacuum distillation, infusions as well to sort of work on the recipe development. And we got to something that we were quite happy with. And we work quite closely with one of our trade accounts in Bermondsey Street called Hakata. So they're an Asian restaurant. And we took the product to a Meet the Maker event. So we go there on every few months to basically showcase our brand and talk about our products and deliver a tasting while people come and eat the foods. And we thought that was the perfect sort of focus group to test out the product. And the feedback was very positive. But they actually said that the peppery notes could be enhanced. So we then dialed that level up. Previously, we were working on very much sort of the green tea flavors, but we found that we needed a bit of sweetness in there to sort of balance it out, and that's where the mango element came into it as well. So through that sort of process of iteration, we were able to come up with the final recipe, which is what we're tasting tonight.
It does, it does come across very much so as a liquid and a brand that is very much suited for food pairing and obviously Asian food, but not necessarily just that. But in terms of the flavors and the pepperiness, and also the sort of mango fruit sweetness and every other element that goes in there, it's incredibly versatile. If you think about the sort of the tea elements in there with dark chocolate, for example, as a dessert style drink, but then you've got the spice and pepper that could go quite nice with more rich sort of heavier meat dishes, for example. So incredibly versatile in that respect. And obviously, absolutely perfect for Asian cuisine, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think it's just I think it's an interesting one because when we do tastings, I think people are intrigued by it, but they may be a little bit uncertain because of the the descriptive nature of it. But it's been very well received while we've been out doing tastings and then build it up into a gin and tonic serve as well. It's we're very happy with.
I wonder, Matt, have you had sort of the opposite of the problem that I had with it initially, in that because of the name of it, people are expecting something that tastes, I don't know, like a kind of mango fruit shoot sort of thing, and they taste it and they go, well, this kind of just tastes like gin. I was expecting a liqueur of some sort, I wanted basically a gin alco pop, and you've given me just a delicious gin.
Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly agree. The mango element of it is quite subtle, so that doesn't come through as like a strong flavor, but it's more there to counteract some of the other flavors. So it takes away some of the harsh alcohol burn when we get to the sort of the tasting side of it. So it obfuscates a little bit of that, which is good. And then I think as well, when you're smelling the product as well, what you first get is a lot of like peppery notes. But the more you smell it, you become a bit more nose blind, and then the sort of the floral and the sweetness comes in as well. So I think some of those sweet and softer floral notes, they're subtle, but they will all sort of work well in harmony with the spicier elements of it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get the mango off it. I think you, like you say, a little bit of perseverance, and also I presume it's dried mango you've distilled rather than fresh, but I don't know. Maybe it's fresh.
It is.
But I mean, either way, mango for me as an aromatic is actually quite floral. It's only when you eat mango that it becomes very fruity because it has that sweet and sour balance on the palate. But I guess what I was getting at is, are people who are conditioned to drinking the kind of like gin liqueurs that you might find in Aldi or Lidl, and I'm sure there's a market for it, and not to sort of demonize those products. I just worry, like a gin that says mango on the label, they're maybe expecting something that's not just overtly mango-y, but also like sweet as well, like actually sweetened. I just wonder do you ever get any kind of pushback for people who are like, oh, I was kind of hoping for something like super sweet, rather than this, like, what is it, still kind of very much a distilled or London dry style gin?
Yeah, I think like we haven't had any complaints or reviews that have said this isn't what we were expecting necessarily. I think it's more just the thought of what it would taste like versus what it does actually taste like. And I think with anything really, you just got to get liquid on lips really. So whenever we've done tastings, then the feedback's been really positive. But it's the challenge to get them to try it in the first place, which is why something like this is such a great mechanism for maybe not going out and purchasing a bottle straight off the bat and then be like, oh, I'm not sure whether I'm going to like it or not. You can actually have a relatively small amount, and if it's for you, perfect, and if it's not, then there's no great problem.
Yeah, totally. That's the idea.
Yeah, I think the other good thing, for brands like yours, which have a selection, a variety of different SKUs, let's say, or different products, is that you can build that brand trust, right? By sampling one product that you actually really enjoy, it opens up the entire portfolio that you've got of other great products, and sort of gives them that gateway in to trying all of the range that you've got, right?
Well, also, I think the massive advantage that Matt and Jim Tonic have is they've obviously got they've got bars. And so when you talk about, getting liquid on lips and doing tastings, you obviously have the opportunity to educate at the same time. A little bit like what we're doing now, but in the venue with the still and with all the products and everything, and that's super powerful and a great sort of string to your bow, I think, because for a lot of the time, gin producers are making their product and sending it out into the ether, and they are somewhat beholden to whatever the bar or the bartender or the person who doesn't even want to be on shift that night is doing with that product. And of course, you're obviously selling your product to bars too as well, but nevertheless, you have these shop windows, if you like, where you can expose people in your kind of ecosystem of the brand with all the right narrative and everything that goes with it, and the education piece.
Yeah, it's a great tool to be able to do that. So we've got gin tasting experiences in the distillery, so we can do tours and tastings that way. But we've also got gin flights that you can buy at the bar, and as you say, a lot more control in terms of like how the product is served. So we've got a really strong mixology team here that we work quite closely between the distillers and the mixologists to sort of understand what the consumer is looking for and to provide feedback on when we're going through the recipe development process, what they think as well and what could work well in different cocktails. So that's really one of our USPs, I suppose, as a brand.
Speaking of mixologists and cocktails, let's hand over to Mr. Ask. And let's see who's going to mix us this month. What's going on, Tom?
So I'm actually, it's quite exciting for me this month because I'm making a drink that I've never ever made before, and it is the drink of the month that was recommended on the tasting card, the Jasmine cocktail, which I've never had the pleasure of making, and this will be the first time I've ever made, having been in this industry for nearly a quarter of a century. So I'm excited. I think also the other great thing about this drink is that, as always, and every month I say this, but it's trying to use ingredients that are relatively easily accessible at supermarkets or at the local shops. So this particular drink it originated, as I understand it, as an adaptation of a drink called a Pegu Club. The Pegu Club was in New York, but this drink came about in the 1990s from a Californian bartender who I understand his name was, I think it was Nick Harrington, his name was. And it's a slight, I guess, a twist on a sour, really. A gin sour in this case, obviously with the Szechuan pepper, mango, and jasmine, Jim and Tonic. Nearly said gin and tonic. But with the addition of Cointreau or triple sec, In this case, I'm using a blood orange Cointreau and a small dash of Campari as well, which I think is fantastic and also really apt for this particular drink with those peppery notes and that sort of spice and sweetness, because I've always found that Campari with its bitterness works incredibly well with that sort of pepper and sweet, not sweet, but sweet fragrant notes that you'll get on the gin as well. So I'm going to start with the base ingredients of a sour, beginning with around 50 milliliters of the Jim Tonic. It's really difficult to get that with the Jim Tonic. I'm so used to saying gin and tonic that there's a slight sort of pause as it's rolling off the tongue, or not rolling off the tongue. Around 50 milliliters of the Jim Tonic, Szechuan pepper, mango, and jasmine gin. I've got around 25 milliliters of fresh lemon juice, freshly squeezed lemon juice, which I squeezed earlier. I have around 7.5 milliliters of sugar syrup, which is just equal parts hot water and caster sugar, which I've dissolved down into a simple syrup at home, just to add a little bit of sweetness to that. And then the two ingredients, Campari, which is a sort of aromatic bitters, which is going to lend a beautiful colour to the drink, but also some nice sort of bitterness, but also a slight sweetness to it as well. I mean, again, a lot of people are familiar with Campari. A great cocktail ingredient. So 7.5 milliliters of Campari. And then just finishing with 7.5 milliliters of, in this case, Cointreau blood orange, or it could be standard Cointreau or triple sec. Which, by the way, is a sort of orange-based, I guess, a dryish orange-based liqueur. So I'm going to give this a shake. Let's shake this up.
Kind of like it's like a white lady, isn't it? But with Cointreau.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the same formula as white lady or even a cosmopolitan is sort of in the same ballpark.
Exactly. And I'm just going to grab my glass out of the freezer, which is right here. There you go. Nice, chilled. In this case, I thought I'd go for a more sort of old school martini glass, although it would be quite nice in the coupe as well. And I'm just going to strain that into my martini glass. Looks like a Cosmo, tastes nothing like a Cosmo, or not much like a Cosmo. And I'm going to finish it with a twist of lemon over the top, which releases the oils on top of the glass, gives it an incredible aroma. And I'm going to leave this citrus peel out over here. And there we have it, the jasmine cocktail.
Nice. It's the colour, man. I love the colour. I actually think that it is not far from a Cosmo at all. I actually think it's a good sort of upgrade to a Cosmo, because you switch the vodka for gin, and you got triple sec, which a Cosmo has. You've got citrus, which a Cosmo has, and you got that little bit of Cointreau in there, basically instead of the cranberry juice for colour and bitterness and sweetness. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, that is, and it is the first time I've ever made or tasted that drink before. It's absolutely delicious. It is incredible. Not just because I made it, but genuinely as a drink, it's absolutely banging.
Yeah.
And one that I remember for a nice sort of summer's afternoon, I think. Very, 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 very good. Works incredibly well with the gin as well. Like you say, all the botanicals, all the characters, the aromatics, really cut through. It doesn't get lost. Really well balanced and delicious. Really accessible as well. Actually, it's got this really nice balance of it, retaining all of the character of the gin, but also being really light and delicate and accessible and easy to drink as well at the same time. So yeah, really good drink. So
I'm literally looking around me right now to see if I've got any Campari. I think I'm going to go make one in a minute.
You should definitely make one. It is very, very nice.
I'm jealous. I might ask the bartenders to whip me one.
Yeah. This will be on your next events menu.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that one.
I've no idea what's called jasmine though. I've never worked that out. Like
no. I mean, could it be? Is it anything to do with the colour? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the colour. I mean, don't think like sort of jasmine tea, jasmine flowers. Maybe it's that kind of thing. But it's a pretty tenuous connection. I mean, this might be one of the few occasions where it's actually got jasmine in the cocktail.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, very good.
Cool. Well, nice one, Tom. Thanks. And Matt, thanks so much. Any closing words? Anything we didn't cover that you're desperate to mention?
I don't think so. I think obviously that looks like a great cocktail. With our brand name, we always try to create a perfect serve as a gin and tonic, which might be really easy for all the folks to make at home. So our perfect serve with the gin is a double measure, so the flavors come through nice and strong, and we pair that with either a Mediterranean tonic or a Mallorcan tonic as well, and those flavors seem to marry quite well together. And then we garnish it. We always have like a couple of different herbs or fruits that we put in as a garnish. So we garnish that with some sage leaves and some pink peppercorns as well, just to bring out the sort of spicy notes in the gin as well. So if you've got those ingredients at home, maybe that's a good one to try out, or maybe just with the tonic.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Good to get a garnish recommendation for a G&T for sure. Brilliant. Right. Well, I'm going to go make myself a jasmine. I think Matt's going to order one. Tom's going to make himself another one. And everyone listening, watching, hopefully you're inspired to do the same, because it's a great drink. Cool. Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Cheers. And we'll